Hi, everybody. I'm pleased to welcome my guest. You see her right now. She's a great writer. She knows everything there is to know about progressive politics. She runs the newslog.com website where you can see all of her stuff. It's Caitlin Johnson. Hey, Caitlin, thanks for being on the show.
Hi, Jimmy. No problem.
So tell me about your latest article. You're talking about Democrats going into the Green Party. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, which one are we? Is it Fuck Unity?
It's the,
Or I just actually published another one now.
about Rachel
along a
Maddow.
similar line. Oh, Rachel Maddow. Yeah, I called her an asshole. So yeah.
Now, why would you
I've
do
been
that?
all over the place.
She's a nice Why she's nice people? I don't understand. Why would you call her an asshole?
Oh, I can't stand her.
Rachel
I can't
Maddow?
stand.
What? What about it?
Oh, I can't stand. Anyone who uses that amount of, like, she's obviously a really brilliant mind. That is a brilliant mind. That's a lot of intelligence. And anyone who uses that amount of intelligence to bring down, like, Jill Stein, you know, what, like 1% of the vote, and she's used all that brain power to squash out one of the very few good things that is happening in American politics today. So I can't stand it. No, yeah, I'm not a big fan.
Well,
Not a big fan.
I saw a video, and we're gonna talk about it later. But I saw a video. Ron Placone's here with me. You saw the video where Rachel Maddow made fun of Jill Stein for having gray hair, right? Now, did you see that video?
No, I did not see that video.
Oh,
I have grey hair. What's wrong with that?
I don't know. You have to ask Rachel. She's your best friend.
Well, that's because it is, and she finds these tiny, tiny little things, and then she blows them up, and then she uses all that, like, those faces, you know, that the kind of, like, she's just on the edge of losing her shit.
So you've noticed that Rachel Maddow is kneecapping progressives, whether it be Bernie Sanders or someone like Jill Stein, and she's not really propping them up in the way she should be. You would think that a progressive, a lesbian with her own news show, who's supposed to be a progressive, she's not treating activists or progressives the way you would normally think she would treat them. And you noticed that, correct?
Yeah, well, she's our internal saboteur, isn't it? She looks like one of us. She sounds like one of us. She has all the same rhetoric that we do, and yet she uses it to bring down the most beautiful elements of our light that we're trying to bring in here, and to corral, you know, the more kind of gentle ones of us into her crew. To support the oligarchy, to support corporatism, to support, you know, endless stupid wars. So she uses all of that, like everything that she's got going for her, to prop up what the movement that is taking us towards human extinction. I can't actually think of anything more evil to do with your time than that. With your time, your intelligence, and your imagination.
Yeah, she's really beating the drum for World War III, for a military confrontation with Russia. Would you agree?
Isn't she? Yeah, isn't she? And she's, you know, like I wrote another piece a while back where she was just on the edge of her seat with excitement because, well, as she revealed that they had worked out a way of blackmailing Trump into keeping the troops in Poland, like into keeping up the
Cold War posture.
The war. Yeah, the Cold War posture, yeah. And to making sure that so that it would look bad for him if he drew them back. So we're at, like, she was actually saying, hey, we've got him in this situation where he has to have a Cold War with Russia. Yeah, go progressives. Woohoo.
So what
is that?
So now how do you know? Now you're from Australia. What part of Australia are you from?
From Melbourne.
From Melbourne?
Down the bottom. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
You know, that's the part of Australia I was actually in. I was in Melbourne for 3 weeks in 2004.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I got a real taste of Melbourne. Melbourne's a great city. I love that place.
Oh, it is a really good city. It's clean. Very good city to live in.
It's clean. It's got great restaurants, great public transportation, great nightlife. It's got a great the ocean's right there.
And the ocean's right. Yeah. And it's a fairly good advertisement for social democracy because it has sprung up from that culture. We have a strong progressive culture politically here.
Yes, I noticed. In fact, you have a higher minimum. Well, your wages are set by the government in Australia.
That's right, yes. And so they're at about, I think it's $17.70, but they're often higher. The wages are pretty high here because we also have a fairly strong union movement. So
what do you
that
think?
helps a lot too.
So now, as an outsider, what do you think's wrong with the United States? Like, why? What is happening in here to take the richest country in the world and render most of its workers and half of its population poor?
I honestly think it's a few people who have taken the very goodwill and well-meaningness of Americans and twisted it in on itself. I think the subversion of the American dream, in that the American dream tells you that if you're hardworking, you can make it anywhere. I'll make it, anywhere. Just all you have to do is work hard. But the same side of that, on the opposite side of that coin, is that if you're poor, that must mean that you're lazy. And so we have like a whole populace beating each other up for being poor, when being poor is just, it's it's a natural part of where energy sometimes, takes from some and gives to others. Rich people aren't necessarily hard workers. In fact, the richest people are usually, they get it from inheritances, or they spend a lot of time gaming money on the stock exchange. So it's not like they're out there like with 4 kids hanging off them, tilling the fields. That's not the hard work that they're talking about, is it? It's just this strange ability to game a sociopathic system, which is what happens when you try and make a lot of money. You have to become kind of sociopathic. So the sociopaths have risen to the top because that's what money values the most. And so now we have a lot of very sociopathic cultural mind viruses going around, and they're making it sure that like real Americans don't stand up for themselves and don't insist that when they pay taxes that it comes back to them in the form of making their lives better, rather than going overseas to kill brown people, or going straight to corporations to ensure more wage slavery, or to creating like systems of oil, which we should be stopping using anyway, to poison water and so on. All these ways that we don't want our taxes to be used, but we're somehow kind of manufactured consent into doing so.
Yes, so those are some very astute observations about how the working class in America is beating up on each other for who's lazier, because if you don't have money, if you're poor, there's something. So that happened in America, even though we call ourselves a Christian nation, and Jesus was a champion of the poor. And he said, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. Yet we still demonize the poor people as if being poor is a moral failing. And in America, the Christian preachers often preach the gospel of prosperity, meaning if you're prosperous, that's God blessing you. And you always hear people say, I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed. So that means people who don't have shit, God doesn't like them. Right? That's basically that's the mentality of Americans. And that's a great observation. How are you able to make that observation from Melbourne about the United States? You have an insight into our culture that most people here don't have.
Well, I have an American husband who's very astute as well, and also homeschooled. So he had a little bit of an outsider's view too into what was going on in his culture. And so, and we have a very intense relationship, and we talk a lot, and I get to travel. I get to go around America, and then he comes back here and we discuss what's working and what isn't. And I guess so. I feel sometimes that I don't have like the nitty gritty of what's going on, but I feel comfortable in having an overview of what's going on, because these are basic human problems as well. I mean, these
Well,
are
yes, but
egoism.
yes, but I mean, you write about American politics every time I read one of your articles. It's spot on and insightful. And by the way, what's good about what you write about is that you don't really hear that point of view most places. Like we're very simpatico, you and I. That's why I think we're doing this. That's why we like each other. Is that we see the same things. Like I'm able to watch Rachel Maddow and I say, oh my God, she's the opposite of what she pretends to be. She's a pretender. That whole goddamn network is a bunch of fucking pretenders, right?
Yeah, they're phonies. Yeah,
they are.
That's what they are.
They. I just saw Chris Hayes do the thing with Susan Sarandon and Josh Fox. Can you look me in the eye and tell? Like somehow there's some moral activists are the problem with our country, according to Chris Hayes.
Right.
Activists and actresses, they're the real problem, and they're the ones who have to be brought to heel. They have to make an atonement for Trump's election, not a jagoff who has a $6 million news show who shows Trump's empty podium more than he shows the progressive in the race. It's an activist who's working tirelessly to fight against oil companies. That's the real problem in our country. That's what Chris Hayes thinks, and you notice stuff like that.
Well, the thing is, to him, we are the real problem. We are the enemy. We are the enemy of his $6,000 suit. We're the ones who are coming in and making a whole new way of doing things that they're not going to be able to, like, they're losing their grip anyway. You know, these people only have a tiny, tiny, tiny little viewership compared to, say, what you have. And you're doing this on a shoestring, you know, like, and anyone can do this on a shoestring, and they hate that.
Yes.
They watched Bernie Sanders come up on $27 donations, wearing his old shoes and his daggy, that's an Australian word, daggy suit, on absolutely nothing. And that is the new way of politics. It's going to be a vocational thing. It's going to be just people wanting to do it, getting in there because they want to serve people, not because they want to suck from the corporate tit of George Soros, you know, not so that they can go to big parties and enjoy themselves, and they can see the party is nearly over. And we're the enemy to that. They know that. We just want to get in there, do the job, turn this around, and actually bring us back to health. They don't want that at all, because that'll be the end of the salad day. So
I couldn't agree with you more. They do see, and that you're right. I think of all the money and resources that is pumped into one of those news shows on MSNBC. I mean, there's got to be 30, 40 people working for 1 hour show that they produce a day, and assistants and producers and directors and gaffers and hands and best boys and audio engineers and just constant. And, you know, they don't have many investigative reporters. They didn't have enough people to send someone to North Dakota. I noticed that. And they were able they were able to ignore Occupy Wall Street for almost 2 weeks. I noticed that. But it's weird. They have all those people. You're right. And and what is their viewership? Their viewership is barely higher than someone like me, right? Lots of my clips, we get 8 million views a month here. And
I would love
that. And you know we don't have that kind of, we don't have corporate money, but we don't have they have, just alone Rachel Maddow herself makes $30,000 a day, just so you know, a day. A day. So just think about that. And then you think about what they don't cover. All that money, and they don't cover fucking anything. So,
right.
And they get everything wrong. They get the Russia story wrong. They get the Syria story wrong, right? They get it's like that's what they do for a living. And then
it wrong, or did they get it really right, though, Jimmy?
Oh, they get it right.
Because I sometimes wonder about the evil of these people. Like, I used to be one who was like, oh, well, maybe, like, the evidence isn't really in, and perhaps, that like, give them a break. I'm sick of giving them a break. They know that they're lying. They must know that they're lying. They must know that this whole Russia thing is a big farce. It's got all the hallmarks. They lived through Iraq. They saw what we saw. They're taking the CIA's word. These are people who are, like, employed to lie. Like, they must know that they're lying. I don't give them sympathy anymore. And I actually think that's something that we have to retract as a movement, is sympathy. Obama spent 8 years drawing upon people's sympathy to do absolutely nothing, and in fact, behind the scenes, wind humanity's forward movement back a long, long way. All because we were like, oh, you can't do anything because like, it's all the other people. It's not him. He's really well-meaning or whatever. I don't know about that. I'm not sure about that anymore. You know, I think that
Caitlin, someday Barack Obama will be in a position of power and he can actually do something.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I think because we're good people and we project our goodness onto other people. We look at Obama and think, well, if I was in that position, yeah, it would be tough. And we use our goodness actually to hide their badness. So
wow.
I'm all about just watching action. If their actions are bad, then they're bad people. I'm sick of listening to their excuses and their stories. Just watch the actions, and that will tell the story about what sort of person they are.
Now, did you write an article that was a reaction to the DNC election of Tom Perez? Did you write a column on that?
Yes, I did.
And what's it called? What's the headline on that article?
Well, I wrote two. In the lead up, I wrote, I dare you to do it. I dare you to elect Tom Perez and see what happens article.
And they did it. They took your dare. They took. And so what? And so what do you think now afterwards?
Well, they couldn't even throw us a bone. Like the two, like Ellison and Perez, exactly the same people, basically. Perez was, pro TPP. That was about it. Ellison came up with a whole heap of energy behind him. He had like Sanders supporting him. He had, he had Chuck Schumer supporting him, didn't he? There was a lot of energy behind him. And then somewhere in the bowels of the DNC, they thought, we can't let them have this. We can't let them have even this win. And so they brought Perez up, I think, in December.
Yeah, December 15th. Now, but Caitlin, let me ask you a question. If you say there's no difference between Tom Perez, really, and Keith Ellison, really, and the only difference you say is the TPP, which to me is huge, but I would ask you this, then why did the corporatists, meaning Barack Obama recruited Tom Perez? And they did that when they realized that Keith Ellison did have all the energy behind him and he was going to win. And they were like, fuck that. You were correct in your assessment. They were like, no way is a progressive going to take over the DNC. We have to stop that. But if their policies were so similar, why would they want to do that?
Well, I think we should ask that question. I'm not one to cast aspersions, but I think that there's something a little wonky going on there. I think that maybe Perez, there might be deals done behind the scenes about that. And Ellison was perhaps not as controlled, didn't have things hanging over him. We know that the DNC works on corruption. We know that that's how they operate. We know that, there are stories that they hold over each other and little lies and little promises that they make and stuff. And so I just think that they can control Perez more than they can control Ellison, as well as the fact that they did not want any progressive to think that the Dems were in any way interested in our involvement whatsoever.
It seems like it. It seems like they... Again, Shama Sawant said this on the Aggressive Progressive a few months ago, and every day that goes by, I realize it's true, is that the Democrats' first order of business is to not defeat Republicans, but it's first to defeat the agenda of workers.
Yep. Yes, definitely. And that's when the call goes up, to unite. What they're asking us to do really is to unite with our abusers. It's like, trying to unite with your abusive husband or whatever. Do it for the children, do it for the children. No, but the charge isn't it, that we're spending too much energy looking at them and not enough looking at Trump. But it's actually the other way around. They're spending far too much energy trying to stomp us out when we could just take over, fix everything. We know how to fix Trump. We've got all the answers for Trump. We have every solution that we need for Trump. We speak to Trump's people. I speak to Trump's people all the time, mm-hmm. and they really resonate with Bernie's message. That it makes sense to them. They're even talking about universal health care, and they're there. They were just waiting. So it's not us who doesn't want to unite, it's them. And they're a very small group. So, it wouldn't be hard for them to just turn around and help us and just flow in and change everything.
Well, the future of the party, Bernie Sanders, the 35 and under crowd went for Bernie Sanders, something like 7-1. So
Right.
for Bernie in the primary over Hillary, the under 30. So the future of the party. I mean, so now we're a year removed from that, or 2 years removed from those primaries, and so those people are now 37. In 2018, they're going to be 38. In 2020, they'll be 40. So now everybody 40 and under is a bona fide progressive that the Democratic Party establishment wants to dismiss. So they want to dismiss now half their party. That's what's happening. And, I did a story on the show. It's another video I'm dropping right around this time about how their real problem is the progressives who left the party. That is a problem, and they don't get that. And they don't think they need to get the progressives back because they still operating under that where you got to go. And Trump is so bad, they'll come back. That's their whole thinking. And I'm not voting for corporate Democrats. I don't care what's happening because it only makes things worse. And then the Republican later is even worse, right? So we got lucky in a sense. If you want to look at it this way, we got lucky that the corporate Democrats imploded so hard in an era of change. They ran the status quo candidate of all status quo candidates, the establishment candidate of establishment candidates, right? That's who they ran, and they keep losing because of that. And now what we really need to do is get progressives to come back into the party, but they're not doing that. So they're going to lose again. So they ran the establishment candidate to end all establishment candidates, and they lose to Trump, who kind of lucky. He's such an incompetent. We were able to push back. He doesn't know how to make people like the horrible stuff he does, right? And so now it's kind of a gift that we get this horrible person to run against, but the Democrats are going to run against him with the same strategy. And so instead of it being a bloodbath in 2018, it might not be nothing. What do you think about that?
Well, I think when the only tool you've got in your kit is a wedge, you are going to wedge yourself out. And that's what I see them doing. They tried to wedge us into voting for Hillary, which was a bust. You can't, it did work on some people, admittedly. Some people were too scared not to. But at the same time, as people network, as they are on the internet, and they're getting more and more woke, they're starting to understand more and more about how these people operate and what they're actually saying when they spill out all these stories that are meant to frighten us. But those stories just are having less and less impact on us.
I agree. Where do you see what do you see happening going forward? Do you see a third party actually happening in America, or do you see the Democrats just losing for another couple election cycles? What do you predict?
I don't think it'll go on that long. We're already in February, and already things have changed massively since November. This is a hugely exciting time to be alive, I think, and I think that we'll have the answer to that in the next 6 months or so, whether or not it'll be a third party or a total demolition of the Democrats, but I can't see the energy that they're using to hold this thing up, which is just money. It's only money. So there's not enough money to hold back the people. That's what I see happening. They had to win Dapple, for example, because that was such an iconic battle for them, but they can't win every Dapple. And when everyone is starting to really wake up to these things and starting to get really activated, and even when they're being activated in a way when Soros or whatever tries to co-opt it into a controlled opposition, it's still chaotic, and within that chaos, things turn up. People. They can't control everything anymore. They had it so stitched down, didn't they?
So when you say they can't control everything anymore, you mean, why is that? Why can't they control everything anymore?
Well, because they don't have control of the narrative anymore. They used to. the Iraq War basically was filtered through uh, six news organisations across the world. Here in Australia, we got the same news as you guys did about it. And even though there was like rumblings of dissent, I didn't believe any of the weapons of mass destruction, and the people around me didn't. But that didn't matter when there's this kind of big brother voice of God telling you what you need to think all the time. Now, people just aren't tuning in anymore the way that they used to. They don't sit down for a 6 o'clock news session where they absorb their brainwashing like good little boys and girls. They go to you. They go to where their energy goes to. They collaborate with people that they speak truth to them, that they resonate with. And we're developing our own narratives about what's going on. And none of them are actually true, but they're all a lot closer to the truth than the one that we've been force-fed high up.
Yes, if people really knew what their government was doing, especially in places like Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan, their minds would be blown and things would change. But it's because you're exactly right. We have six giant news corporations that manufacture consent, and that's exactly what they do. Caitlin, everybody can check out Caitlin's writing. I love everything she does. She's right on target. We're going to have her on a lot more. You're going to get used to seeing her. If you go to newslog.com, so NEWSLOGUE.com, is that how you spell it?
That's the one. Yeah.
All right, we'll put a link for her. We'll put a link for her underneath. Click on, go read her stuff. It's fantastic. Caitlin, thanks for coming on, and we'll see you soon again.
No worries, Jim. Keep fighting.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye. Hey, the next live Jimmy Dore show is March 4th. That's a Saturday. Get your tickets right below. The next one after that is March 20th. The shows sell out really fast, so get your tickets right now. Links right there.